All right, let's get started with our first panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Colorado's 3rd Congressional District, Lauren Boebert. From Colorado's 4th Congressional District, Ken Buck. And Colorado's 5th Congressional District, Doug Lamborn.
Birds flying high.
Thank you so much for coming.
You know how I feel.
All right, grab a seat. We're going to have a conversation. Because we need to have a conversation.
Let's talk.
What is happening to Colorado? Let's just start there. What is happening to Colorado right now?
Well, so if I may, I have meetings all throughout my district and beyond on a regular basis, and it doesn't matter who I'm meeting with and what the topic is, it always ends the same, whether I'm meeting with mayors or commissioners or city council, stakeholders, school superintendents, all of it is the same. The state legislature passed these policies. There are unfunded mandates. They are destroying our communities. There's an urban and rural divide, and these policies that may work in rural communities don't work in rural communities. And then they say, well, the federal government, please give us money to help. And at some point, we have to recognize that you're not voting compassionately by putting Democrats in office, because these policies destroy everything that we're working so hard to build each and every day.
Jeff, here's yesterday's Wall Street Journal, a front page article on the B section about how Colorado is excluded. If you're working remotely and you want to work for a national company, they're taking applications from all 50 states except Colorado. Because our legislature, in their radical viewpoint, the Democrats decided that in the name of equality, if you post a job opening, you have to list all of the pay ranges for any similar job. And private industry either can't or won't comply with that. So good luck if you're in Colorado. All 49 other states can apply for these jobs, but not Colorado. It shows how bad policies are hurting the people of Colorado.
Jeff, does that microphone really say hunt?
It does. So you want to know the story behind this one?
Yeah.
So my father and my mother have been in radio for their entire careers. And for my father's 70th birthday, I had this made for him. As a present, as he was kind of semi-retiring, but not really. He keeps working. And I said the other day, I've got to have a microphone on the desk like Jimmy, Fallon or Jay Leno. And I said, bring that on down. Let's have that up there. So there you go.
It looks good. Well, to answer your question, we have a whole lot of Californians moving in that don't share our values. We have a new population, but I agree. You're probably talking to the wrong three people, because in our districts, people are fed up with the legislature. Right. People are fed up with the creeping socialism that we see in this state. And I don't care if someone has a gun in Denver or doesn't have a gun in Denver. Just don't tell me what I need to do in Windsor, Greeley, Sedgwick County, in the rest of Colorado, and I'm sure these guys feel the same way. Exactly. Don't tell me where I can, worship, and certainly don't tell me that I can't worship during, the Fauci era of American politics. Right. And the infrastructure that we have in this state is killing us, the Denver Post and the other left-wing news organizations. But nationally, we're getting killed by big tech. We're getting killed by a lot of other sort of infrastructure that manipulate the way people think. And I think, but I do think there's hope. And I think that's the key is the crime rates are going up in this state because of what the governor and others are doing. Mm-hmm. When you look at paying people not to work, small businesses are being hurt. I think that people understand that these are bad policies, and I do believe that Colorado will go purple and red again in the future.
What you're saying, Representative Buck, I think is right. We took a film crew to Lauren Boebert's district, and the reception that she had up there was incredibly positive in ways I really haven't seen before. We went to her restaurant. I gave an interview in Westward about this, that there was excitement. People were coming by to see her, to get their picture taken with her while we were out on the gun range and stuff like that. So what you're saying is that the people in the districts, these wonderful districts, Colorado's third, fourth, and fifth districts, are really frustrated with the direction of the state. They want a different direction, but we're dealing with these urban centers, Denver, Boulder, but even some of the suburban areas outside of Denver. Congressman, you were the chairman of the Republican Party recently. Is that the challenge that we're having, these urban areas and this rural-urban divide? Is that what's really taking our state in a bad direction?
It's certainly taking our state in a bad direction, but also I can remember, Jeff, and you can remember, and certainly, Doug, we were all in politics at the time. Lauren was barely born back then, but it's still, but it used.
McDonald's application.
That's right. It used to be a cuss word for someone, for you to say to a Democrat politician, well, they're from Denver. That was all people needed to hear. They're from Boulder. They're a Boulder liberal. That used to be a label that Democrats would run away from. Now they embrace Boulder liberal. They embrace being from Denver. And if you look at the growth in the state, a lot of the growth is in this area.
Jeff, what happens every single time, both in Washington, D.C., where we serve, or in Denver, is that when Democrats take power, they overreach.
Yes.
Their progressive, extreme liberal, hard left views get the better of any kind of sense of compromise or moderation or common sense, and they go to the extreme.
Yes.
Every single time. Joe Biden is doing that. He's spending our country into oblivion. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, their views are just, with a tied Senate and a razor-thin margin in the House, they have no mandate, and yet they act as if it's the New Deal all over again, where FDR had like 100 surplus votes in the House.
Let's talk about Nancy Pelosi's Congress. You all serve in it. You have to deal with it on a regular basis. What's it like from the inside?
Well, I'm wondering when the unity is going to take place. Nancy Pelosi controls the floor schedule. We do not vote on Republican legislation. This is all of their extreme agenda that is being passed through, and they want to put Republicans in a bad place for voting against things and voting for other things. I mean, goodness, I voted for Juneteenth, and they even want to take that and make it look like a bad thing. Like, no. Freedom from slavery is a good thing.
That's right.
It's okay. It's okay to support that. But then they want to say that we are against our police officers if we vote against Nancy Pelosi's radical language. I want to say today, thank you to the police officers who are here. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice to your communities. It is devastating to see how our law enforcement officers have been demonized and vilified over the past year. Democrats have called for their defunding, the dismantling of the organization, to remove qualified immunity. That's something that we have done here in Colorado. Democrats have taken their qualified immunity away and made them personally liable for doing their job. And now in the House, Nancy Pelosi wants to do that on a national level. That's already gone through. And these are the extreme radical Democrats that we are trying to expose their agenda and combating each and every day.
Jeff, there are supposed to be some blue dog Democrats in Washington. I don't know who they are. Every single one of them will vote Nancy Pelosi's way no matter what the issue. Every single time. They know how to break and twist arms. And in private, even the committee chairman will come up to us and complain that the bills are not being written in their committees. They're not being voted on in the committees. They're being written in Nancy Pelosi's office and handed down, and they have to accept it, good, bad, or indifferent.
Congressman, what's it like in D.C. right now?
Well, I can tell you a whole lot more people stood up for the national anthem here and the Pledge of Allegiance here than they do at NFL games and in Washington, D.C., and I am so proud to be among friends and people that understand that there are some things about this country that we don't even question. We know that we have a freedom foundation in this country. They don't know that, and they keep this idea of dividing Americans based on gender, based on race, based on ethnicity, based on faith.
Jeff, the motto of the state of Colorado is nil sine numine, nothing without providence.
That's right.
I'm a person of faith, and I'm surrounded by people of faith here. We need to get back to faith, to God, to prayer. Ultimately, that's what's going to save our state. So if you're a person of faith, pray for Colorado. That's the way forward.
Yes, and get involved. We need Christians involved in these positions. And that was something that I actually said to a group of women before I even had it in my mind to run for office. I thought I was charging them with something that they need to do as Christians, but really I ended up taking up my own advice and running with it. But this is a spiritual battle, and for Christians to say, you know, like I don't get political and I don't get involved. This is very much spiritual, and we need Christians because there are important conversations being had at tables that Christians need to be seated at. Why? Because the Creator lives on the inside of you, and you have the answers that the world is seeking.
That's right. That's right. Just as a reminder, we want to stay about ideas and not parties or elections, but one idea is the Equality Act. What Colorado, you kind of mentioned this, Representative Boebert, Colorado is kind of this liberal breeding ground for ideas that get launched nationally. And the Equality Act was one that we've been dealing with. We had Jack Phillips sit right here, a man who for a decade now has dealt with a government that continues to pursue him and want to persecute him. And why are we in this position where Colorado is all of a sudden this place where, you know, we have qualified immunity? We passed that recently with a police reform bill here. Now that's jumping to the federal level. What has happened to Colorado where we are just, even, it feels like more than California, this place where bad ideas start, they invade our state, and then you've got to deal with them at the national level and try to fight them off. I mean, Jack Phillips lost every court case here in Colorado, wins at the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right.
Again, he lost this week. He's going to have to go all the way to the Supreme Court. It's almost like this is just a festering breeding ground of bad ideas.
There's been a blueprint all along. This is the petri dish for progressive ideas, and this is why we have to be loud and put a stop to this. I don't believe that Colorado is a blue state. Look at the state. Look at our rural communities. We are a red state with blue cities, and we have to be louder and take charge, take ground back. I mean, we were asleep. We were comfortable. We desire to live a quiet and peaceable life. We desire to be influential in our communities at a small level, but they snuck in and took over. And I don't think that all hope is lost. I've read the end of the book. We win. But we have to be engaged in this. I love our founding fathers and their example of faith going into a battle. They declared independence before they were free. They declared it.
That's a great point.
And they didn't just say it. They didn't just write it. They celebrated their freedom as though they already possessed it. And then they went out and fought the battle until they saw that victory that they had declared. God said, declare a thing and it shall be established. We need to start declaring the end from the beginning and walking it out with God.
Amen.
And Jeff, for the people who do not like America and they put forward things like the 1619 Project, critical race theory, we just have to push back against that also.
Yes.
These are poisonous, treacherous ideas that do not honor or even understand the founding of our country. People of faith, Christian, Jewish, other people of faith had a big thing to do, the foundation of our country. That's what the Constitution is based on, acknowledging a creator. So we have to get back to that. And those who are taking this in a different direction, I'm defending Matthew Lohmeyer. He's being drummed out of the military because of his pushing against critical race theory. He was in my office last week. And we just need to make sure that we push back, just like Lauren said. Everywhere we see these things, whack-a-mole, push back every chance we get.
Jeff, one thing I would say, and I say this to everybody out here, we learned the lesson and got elected. If you want to make a change, run for school board. Right. Run for your city council, run for your town council, run for whatever. But don't say, I don't like critical race theory. Do something about it. Right. And I know that people are making a living, and I know that people are raising a family, and I know that all of that is really essential. And in fact, I think raising good children is the most important thing we can do for our future. But run for office and win, and get on that school board and examine the curriculum and examine what's going on around you. We are going to take back Colorado when we win elections, not when we start talking about winning elections. And the elections are going to be won by all the people listening today, and you start winning elections at the local level. So I would just implore you, get involved, win elections. You can't believe how many parents are so upset about how the teachers' unions have been running the schools for the last year. They are going to get involved by either pulling their kids out and homeschooling, or going to a charter school, or going to a private school. Run for school board and make a difference.
Yes. And Ken, you're exactly right. There are so many parents who say, well, I can't do this. I can't run for school board. I can't run for these offices because I have kids, because I have a small business. What if my business gets doxxed? What am I going to do with my children? Who's going to watch them? Well, for me, I felt that it was selfish to sit at home and only complain about what was going on. I wanted to put my hand to something and be a part of the solution. And it wasn't because I have 4 boys that I couldn't run for office. It was because I have 4 boys that I had to run for office, that I had to do something for their future. All I ever wanted to be was a mom. That was my goal. And I mean, I achieved that times 4. But those little stinkers motivate me to do more for their future. And Doug, to your point, you know, we see liberals, they do worship the creation rather than the creator. And we have the Constitution to highlight that government is not our God. Unfortunately, there are so many liberals who look to government and think this is my provider, this is my source, and this is everything that I need is in government. And that's where we get to the House of Representatives, where there's no unity. There's no bipartisan effort, because it's almost like we aren't citizens there, we're subjects. And that's what this party is wanting all throughout the nation. If we aren't free, we're not citizens, we are subjects of the government.
I thought Trey Gowdy had a great line last week. He said that no wonder Lauren ran for a job in Washington, D.C. when she has 4 boys at home.
Adios.
The truth is, Lauren spends a lot of family time and a lot of time in her community, and it is an absolute honor to serve with Lauren and Doug. They are 2 people who are listened to in the U.S. House, and 2 people who will make a difference, and I am so glad that you joined our team, Lauren.
Thank you. Likewise.
Back at you, Kim.
Yes.
So I have
Back at you.
I have a question for the panel.
Biff.
You guys are amazing. I'm proud of y'all, and I thank you that you actually have to put on a gas mask every time you go into the swamp. But how do we? The problem that we have is we get everybody all motivated, and they go out and they vote on these off years and these off. How do we keep people fighting? That's the problem. We win and then we lose, and then we win and then we lose. How do we keep people motivated and fighting? How do we keep them looking at the end prize and not the now? Because people are just asleep. I feel like every 4 years, whoever's in the White House or whoever's in control of the House, people are just lulled to sleep. How do we keep them awake?
Well, one thing we do is we recognize that what they did to us during COVID, they can do to us anytime. When we give up our ability to go to church, when we give up our ability to have our students learn in person, when we give up our ability to be, in Colorado, absolutely amazing, dispensaries were open and churches were closed. And I didn't see a group of pastors, priests, and others protesting somewhere about that happening. We went like lambs to the slaughter. We can't allow that to happen. And yet when we look at...
And the abortion clinics were open too.
When we look at those things, we learn. And I think we have an invigorated, energized population right now that understands, especially President Donald Trump said this COVID could have come out of a lab in China. And big tech shut him down, didn't let him speak. Now all of a sudden, we have experts saying this may have started in a lab in China.
They didn't let doctors speak. Doctors
Right.
were silenced.
Right.
And to your point, to keep people involved, we have to keep engaging with people. We have to listen to people who haven't been heard from for decades. I come home every weekend and I am out with the people in my district, the people who sent me there, who trusted me to be their voice. If I were to stay in Washington, D.C. every weekend, I would be sucked in and become one of them and forget who I'm representing and forget who I really work for and start to think that I work for these lobbyists in D.C. see, which is so far from the truth. But I can see how so many people end up in that situation. So to keep people involved and engaged is to stay out in your communities and keep that conversation going.
Right. Congressman, real quick, your bill on big tech, what's that about?
Yeah, I'll tell you what the bill on big tech is about. And big tech, by the way, spends $50 million in Washington, D.C. to change opinion. But the big tech bills are about this. You own your data. When you search, that's your data. That is not owned by a big tech company so they can sell it for advertising. They know right now where you are. They know what you searched for yesterday. They know what kind of shoes you wear. They know what medicines you buy. Let me tell you something, folks. You own that data, and we need to put consumers back in control of the marketplace, whether it's a digital marketplace or a brick and mortar marketplace, and that's what these bills do.
Right. I would like to point out in regards to shutdowns, Colorado Christian University stayed open the entire year, in-person students, and Colorado Christian University may be, I think, the only university that's not going to mandate vaccinations for students this next year. Isn't that great? That's the leadership of Dr. Donald Sweeting there. He's doing a wonderful job.
May I highlight Congressman Lamborn for a second?
Yes.
I have to applaud your work on Israel, for Israel. You have been such a pillar for standing up for Israel, and we all join alongside of you. There have been two nations created to glorify God, Israel and the United States of America, and we will glorify God, and thank you for your efforts, for everything that you've done for them.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yes.
Congressman Lamborn, question to you. Are we going to keep Space Force?
I hope so. There are two investigations going on, one by the IG's office, Inspector General, one by the GAO, which I called for. And we think there were some flaws in the selection process. We think it should not be, the command should not be taken from the war fighters, taken out from their midst and put 1,000 miles away. That doesn't make any sense. They should all be together, command and war fighters, the guardians, all together. And that makes the most military sense. That's the case I'm trying to make every day in Armed Services Committee. And that's what I think these investigations will bear out when they come forward in the next few months.
I heard a story about the Air Force Academy, and we may want to embrace these tactics. When the government was thinking about where they were going to do the Air Force Academy, I heard that it came down to Denver and maybe a place in Wisconsin or something like that. Colorado Springs in Wisconsin. And the mayor of Colorado Springs sent a bunch of people to Wisconsin when the government was coming there to land, who were holding signs saying, "We don't want it in Wisconsin." And to try to edge the government a little bit towards Colorado Springs. I heard that might have been successful. So, Congressman Boebert, are we going to keep BLM in your district?
I sure hope so. The Bureau of Land Management headquarters there in Grand Junction is very important, and it's always been a bipartisan, bicameral effort to keep that there, to get it there and to keep it there. And so we have the entire Colorado delegation on board with this, and so hopefully we can get Secretary Holland out and actually visit the facility. And I'm still communicating with Secretary Bernhardt, who was instrumental in that move to get it here. But it's really just what they decide. If they want to waste millions more dollars in moving it back to Washington, D.C., it's really important for Westerners to have a voice with these decisions. My district is more than 55% federal lands, and to have someone there, a federal government agency there to be a part of that and see the lands every day is very valuable for us.
Yeah, we had a video last night on Western lands issues, how critical it is that people are actually connected with the lands. So many decisions are made out of Washington, D.C., where people have never visited these areas. And that creates a huge problem. Forest fires, Western land management and use, energy issues and decisions that are made by bureaucrats that haven't been here. So it's a key issue. We invited these three because they're conservative leaders here in Colorado. As a reminder, this was not about elections. This was not about winning or electing anybody. It was about these conservative ideas, and they are representatives with conservative ideas and solutions for their districts. Can we give them a round of applause for the work that they're doing?